Welcome to your astrological forecast for the week of Monday, July 4th through Sunday, July 10th, 2022. This week we do have a couple planets changing signs. We have Mercury, which will move from Gemini to Cancer, and then we also have Mars moving from Aries to Taurus. So both of these planets are moving from the signs where they were in domicile, so they're very strong for the last, a couple weeks to a month, depending on which planet we're talking about. They were very strong in their respective signs that they're in, but now Mercury will move to Cancer, which will mean that our intelligence and our communication will become more ruled by our emotions and by our intuitive intelligence rather than just the cerebral mind. And then Mars moving into Taurus will mean that we will be a little bit less aggressive. We'll be more defensive, less offensive. So the energy right now is less supporting instigation. It's more supporting stability a little bit. And this kind of applies to both planets. Both planets are moving from very outgoing yang signs, very active signs. Both Gemini and Aries are very youthful and they get bored easily. So they kind of provoke us to start things or to instigate things. But now that both of these planets are moving to yin signs, to Taurus and Cancer, Taurus and Cancer are a lot more slow and steady. They want that consistency. They are more conservative in their approach. So generally things are becoming more chill, for lack of better words, more easygoing. And this is actually a theme I see multiple places in the astrology. Right now, as you can see on the chart, all the planets are pretty scattered. Most of the signs have at least one planet in them now. There's really no one sign where there's a whole big, group of planets or anything like that. So what this means is that the energies right now are not very intense. There's not one super strong focal point other than maybe just Cancer since the sun is there and now Mercury's there, but there's not a really strong focal point. So what that means is with the planets scattered in all these different signs, we of course all have different experiences. We experience transits differently depending on our own astrology. Of course, that's always true. Right now, because the planets are so scattered, we will all have a certain amount of very harmonious, easy aspects that we will individually experience, and we all individually also have more challenging aspects at the same time. So it's a mixed bag. The odds of you having a lot of really easy transits or a lot of really difficult transits right now are very slim. Could it happen? Sure, but for most people's charts, it's just kind of a mixed bag. It's kind of just a normal time right now. So I think that's good. I think we can embrace this. Sun will, of course, be in Cancer this week. It's going through the middle of Cancer, so we're already pretty much halfway through Cancer season. Moon will be waxing, it will be gaining light from Virgo, and by the end of the week, it will be in Sagittarius. We will have a first quarter moon, which I always say is potentially the most volatile part of the lunar cycle. But the first quarter moon will be in Libra, so this is a relatively tame first quarter moon. Libra likes to keep things smooth and even, especially the moon being there. Moon in Libra is very reflective, it likes to take its time before it takes action. So, yes, first quarter moons will generally make us a little bit more tense or wound up, more energized and active, but because it's happening in the sign of Libra, which likes to, take it easy more so and be reflective and all that, this is a relatively mild first quarter moon. So even that, really everything about this week is more kind of low key, more chill. So I think we can really take advantage of this because this won't last forever. We just had a lot of really intense stuff going on in May and early June, and we'll have some intensity later on in the year as well. So if you do get a little bored, maybe just be grateful for that because it's good to have these kind of pauses where we can rest and reflect and kind of just enjoy maybe a somewhat normal day to day life just for a little bit before things kind of wind up again in intensity. So that's generally what's going on for this week. Let's go into the specifics here. We start out on Monday, July 4th, and the moon is in Virgo. As you can see, it's about halfway through Virgo around noon Eastern Standard Time, and you can, of course, just adjust accordingly if you are however many time zones away from Eastern Standard Time. But this is really beautiful. I think this is a really beautiful start to the week. Moon in Virgo, of course, makes us more productive. We want to be more organized with the moon in Virgo. So that's kind of a nice energy for Monday for those of you who are starting your week on this day, wanting to be a little bit productive or get some work done. But the moon is very much supported by the sun. Sun and moon are sextiling. The moon is making a waxing sextile. So that means moon is gaining light. It's gradually gaining in energy throughout the week here, starting on Monday. And as it forms this particular angle with the sun, this is a very harmonious angle. Virgo and Cancer actually work very well together because they're both a little bit more conservative. They like to take their time. But they both have different qualities which benefit one another. So the sun in Cancer is making us more emotional, emotionally intuitive, more aware of our inner beliefs and our limits and our personal feeling and all that. It's very subjective, very intuitive. But the moon in Virgo is more practical. So we have this actually really nice balance of being, more, maybe emotionally sensitive, very intuitive, but also at the same time being logical, rational, wanting to be organized and all that. So this is actually a really beautiful combination. It's really great for, I don't know, maybe decision making because we have that balance of emotion and heart and also the mind, the mental energy as well. Okay, let's go forward to Tuesday, July 5th. We actually have a few different aspects happening on Tuesday. So there is Mercury sextiling Mars at 0 degrees. Um, and basically, this is all kind of happening at the same time. So it's interesting to put into words. So Mercury moves into Cancer on Tuesday. Mars moves into Taurus the same day. And they both make a sextile as they enter their respective signs. So, so technically, I believe it's Mercury that sextiles Mars. Mercury at 0 degrees Cancer, Mars at 0 degrees Taurus. So they're both at the very first degree of their respective signs. Again, I think this is really beautiful because just like on Monday, how the moon was sextiling the sun, now on Tuesday we have Mercury and Mars sextiling each other. So again, this is a really harmonious aspect. And again, it's between Cancer and an Earth sign. This time, it's between Cancer and Taurus. But again, the reason why sextiles are so harmonious is because they're combining energies that are similar enough to integrate very easily, but different enough to balance and complement one another. So just like with the Virgo sextile on Monday, which we're still kind of experiencing a little bit of on Tuesday, by the way, not to the same extent as Monday, but Tuesday continues a lot of the same, chill, low key, productive vibes. We're all kind of just steadily content, maybe like whistling while we work type of thing. Kind of just, I don't know, it seems like a pleasant energy. So we're experiencing this sort of in a different way on Tuesday with the sextile between Mercury and Mars. Mercury Mars sextiles generally would kind of promote us being more quick in our thinking or taking action more so. And this isn't the kind of like huge, bold action. It's more like lots of quick movements, wanting to be more spontaneous. But again, you have to think of the context of the signs that this aspect is happening in. Mercury in Cancer is shifting our focus more to, even more so to our feelings and our intuition, our emotional intuition. And then Mars in Taurus. Mars is technically in detriment in Taurus, and so it's not the most aggressive sign whatsoever. Mars and Taurus, like I said, I think we're more defensive, especially with all this Cancer energy right now. We can be a little bit more tribal because we want to be, I don't know, like Cancer is the energy of like walls and like fortification. Like we want to be walled in, we want to be secure, we want to be in the shell of the crab, so to speak. And Taurus is a little bit like this as well. Taurus is the bull, so it's a very calm, peaceful animal unless you provoke it. It's very defensive, I guess you could say. So with Mars and Taurus, that's sort of our approach with our ambitions or with our fighting or aggression. We're not so much interested in fighting. We're more very defensive though with a lot of these energies. So all in all, there's a lot of really stable, calm, slow and steady, stable, conservative energies. But I don't know if someone does have something going on in their personal astrology where they're provoking something, they would get a lot of pushback right now because we're all just a little bit more sensitive and a little bit more aware of our limits right now. It's a little bit more black and white than it may typically be. All right, and then going forward to Wednesday, July 6th, we do have Venus sextiling Chiron, so Venus at 16 degrees Gemini, sextiling Chiron at 16 degrees Aries. I'll get to that in just a moment, but more importantly, we have the first quarter moon in Libra. So Moon actually enters Libra late Tuesday evening, and then by Wednesday we get that first quarter Moon at 14 degrees of Libra. So so this is interesting. So now, Moon has moved on. Moon is in Libra, and combining Moon and Libra with Sun and Cancer is a little bit more volatile. But these signs are both more feminine oriented or more yin oriented. Yes, Libra is air, so it's technically a yang sign, but Libra is ruled by Venus, which is a very feminine, like love and beauty goddess, very feminine oriented, very yin oriented. So that's why Libra is kind of balanced. It can kind of do both. And then mixing this with Cancer, it's very interesting. So both are cardinal signs. They actually have a similar approach, but they have a similar approach in the sense that they're both leaders, and they both lead kind of indirectly through other people because they're more kind of yin oriented. They're not as independent. They're more kind of leading through other people. But the way they do so is very different. Cancer is very emotional, and Libra is very emotionless. I would actually go as far as to say that Libra is the least emotional sign. So mixing Moon in Libra with Sun in Cancer, it can be kind of a clash. It could maybe make us a little bit moody or maybe very sensitive. But combining these energies can also make us very empathetic and very aware of human psychology as well, because we're extra aware of each other. And then again, you have to think about the fact that this is a first quarter moon, so it is provoking us to take action or to initiate something new. But because of the signs that this aspect is in, the way we will initiate will be a little bit I don't want to say secretive. It could be secretive, but it's something a little bit covert or subtle. We're not taking any bold action right now. We're doing something kind of subtle or behind the scenes. Maybe we're just initiating, a deepening of like a relationship, that kind of thing. The focus is very much on relationships, feelings, emotions, personal beliefs, that kind of thing. So that's where you can expect some of the change to be happening on Wednesday. Kind of going along with this theme is the sextile between Venus and Chiron. There's a lot of sextiles this week, which is good. Again, that's a really harmonious aspect. But Chiron, like I've said many times in Aries, is since 2018, we've been very vocal with our past traumas and our wounds and our histories. We're demanding respect and transparency, that type of thing. You can see this in a lot of the protests that have happened since 2018. And depending on which planet kind of triggers this or aspects this, it can look a very different way because Chiron is wanting healing. Chiron's wanting increased empathy and consciousness, healing, that type of thing. But being in Aries, it's very volatile. And depending on the nature of the planet aspecting Chiron in Aries, it can either be very destructive or very beneficial. It can either be therapeutic or it can be damaging to our relationships. It can, create empathy or it can actually kind of hurt it too. So, but in this case, Venus is of course about love and beauty. It wants peace. It wants desire, attraction. It wants strong relationships and fulfilling relationships. So, Venus and Gemini, which is very self-aware, and with Venus and Gemini, we're very much desiring intellectual stimulation and communication. We're very socially aware of each other, curious of each other. So I actually really like this sextile. Venus sextile on Chiron shows that we're wanting social cohesion. We're willing to make compromises in order to coordinate or to work with the group basically, or to work with each other, whether it be in partnerships or maybe larger groups as well. We, I think we're all maybe a little bit more receptive to one another. And going back to the first quarter moon in Libra, I think this in a different way it sort of says something similar as well. We're maybe taking a new approach. We're more open to each other's point of view, that type of thing. So plus side on Wednesday, I think this could be therapeutic. We could maybe be working together really well. There could be a sense of camaraderie, that type of thing. Any kind of downside I'd see for Wednesday is we'd be very sensitive though. So we may kind of step on each other's toes a little bit, nothing major. because again, we're more defensive right now, but we are very sensitive right now, so that is something to maybe look out for. Going forward again to Thursday, July 7th, we have Moon is continuing through Libra, and it actually doesn't make a whole lot of aspects in Libra. It does trine Venus today, so that's really beautiful too. Venus just made this sextile to Chiron. Now Moon is trining Venus, so both the Moon and Venus, these two very feminine bodies, are in their respective air signs, Moon in Libra with Venus in Gemini. So it's showing that the focus is very social and it's very intellectual. We again are wanting like intellectual stimulation, that type of thing. And Moon in Libra is nice. Moon in either of the Venus ruled signs is nice. You know, we all know, or maybe we know, Moon is exalted in Taurus, which is ruled by Venus, and Moon does very well in Libra also. It's not technically in domicile or exaltation, but Moon in Libra is nice because, you know, rather than being emotionally volatile or out of control, with Moon in Libra, we're more likely to, you know, think before we act and to be very self-aware of our own emotions, to be able to kind of analyze our emotions in order to understand them. You know, Libra is a very understanding sign, and it's also very empathetic. So with Moon in Libra, we can be very understanding not only of our own feelings, but also of each other's feelings. So all of that I think is really good. I really like this placement, and especially with the Sun in Cancer, you know, we are extra maybe emotional right now, extra sensitive. So having the Moon in maybe a kind of harmonious sign that's supposed to be about balance, I think that does pretty nicely. Moon actually does a lot better in Libra than the Sun does. So that's pretty good. And then this Moon with trining Venus is just harmonious as well. So all in all for Thursday, it looks like a really relaxed day. The main focus I would say would be air and water. So we are maybe a little bit more in our heads right now. We can get lost in fantasy more. Our imaginations are a little bit more vivid. Um, let's see. And we're still feeling maybe a tiny bit of tension from the first quarter moon on Wednesday. But like I've already said, it's this first quarter moon is a relatively tame one. So going into Thursday, any kind of like sensitivity we would have felt on Wednesday is already kind of fading into the background on Thursday. So these are really relaxing, kind of therapeutic vibes this week. So Thursday definitely reinforces this. It looks like a good day for you know, getting lost in a good book or a good movie, something intellectually stimulating, or maybe having a good conversation with a friend. That type of thing looks really extra rewarding for Thursday. All right, and then Friday, July 8th, we have Sun squaring Chiron now, so that's a little bit different. And then Moon does enter Scorpio very early. So Moon actually enters Scorpio either Thursday, July 7th or Friday, July 8th, depending on where you are. It enters Scorpio right around midnight. Eastern Standard Time, it will be just after midnight. So basically, Eastern Standard Time at least, we have the Moon in Scorpio all day on Friday. And this is really beautiful because it will start to trine the Sun. So Moon is in Scorpio, which is a water sign. Sun is in Cancer, which is a water sign. So these energies blend very well together because they're very similar. So this is also really beautiful. Sometimes Scorpio can be intense. Moon is technically at fall there, so it's usually a difficult sign for the moon to be in. But because of that really strong, harmonious, easy trine aspect from the Sun, this will be a breeze. This will be no big deal at all. You know, we can maybe explore some depths of our own emotion and feeling without it being too, you know, difficult or out of control or that type of thing. We're just kind of exploring those depths and maybe benefiting from the enhanced intuition that those deep emotions come with as well. We're very intuitive right now. We're more perceptive than usual. So all of that, I think, is something to look forward to. We do have one aspect, so that would be Sun squaring Chiron. This does look a little bit more messy. So, okay, so I did say, you know, Chiron and Aries can kind of go either way depending on how you aspect it. Same with Sun and Cancer, honestly. You know, Sun and Cancer makes us more emotional, so that in itself is kind of neutral because emotions themselves can be good or bad, of course. But when you mix in this square aspect with Chiron, you know, squares are a little bit more contentious because you're mixing energies that don't really mix well. So in this situation, we're mixing Cancer and Aries, both are cardinal, both are leaders, but Aries is really outgoing and spontaneous and dramatic. Cancer is more conservative, introverted, more of a homebody. These energies really clash hard. They clash especially hard because they're both leaders, but they're both initiating in a totally different way. And with these particular planets, Sun and Cancer is just showing our overall focus is Cancerian. So it's more on emotions, feelings, intuition, our home and family, our again, it's like the walls, it's like the inner circle. We're more maybe closed off a little bit, but also more emotional at the same time. So now you're mixing in a bunch of fire into that. You're mixing this Chiron and Aries, which is making us all more sensitive and more focused on past wounds and traumas. So things could get political. Things could get, we could get a little bit riled up with protests, especially. I always see that with aspects like this with Chiron in Aries. So that's something to look out for. Otherwise, I think our tempers could just flare a little bit. Chiron's effects are a little bit subtle, so this especially depends on if this aspect is triggered for your chart. So if you have any planets about halfway through the cardinal sign, so I would say, let's just say, let's say 14 through 18 degrees of the cardinal sign. So that would be 14 to 18 degrees around the middle of Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, or Aries. You will feel this especially. So you could kind of lose your temper with someone because maybe you have this long past with them, or you have a long past yourself that they're completely denying, or they're not respecting or understanding. Or maybe it's someone else in your life that is really frustrated with this. And so things that may be bottled up that maybe we weren't even aware of could kind of explode with this aspect again if it's affecting something in your chart. If you don't have any planets around halfway through the cardinal signs, I wouldn't expect this to be very dramatic for you at all. If anything, I would expect to see it more on a global or national level or international level, with protests and that type of thing. And for that, you can also look to, does this aspect hit certain things in your country's chart, and you could see if your area would be especially affected by something like this. But again, going back to the more general theme or feeling for Friday, it looks pretty low key. It's more we're very sensitive, very emotional. So as long as we don't have this Chiron aspect kind of triggering us, we're more just wanting to be creative and to explore emotion and intuitive intelligence at this time. So there's nothing wrong with that on Friday at all. Okay, and then going to Saturday, July 9th, we have Mercury squares Jupiter, and okay, let me get my bearings here. Okay, Mercury at 8 degrees Cancer squares Jupiter at 8 degrees Aries. Again, this is always a volatile square when you mix Cancer with Aries. Mixing water with fire, and particularly cardinal water with cardinal fire. They clash. It's very volatile because they're both so emotionally intense, but in very different ways. And so there's a lot of chaos when you mix a lot of Cancer with Aries. Generally speaking, of course, it depends on the context. It depends on what we're talking about, but it has that potential for sure. With Mercury and Jupiter, no matter how they aspect each other, they tend to work pretty well because yes, they are sort of opposing energies. Mercury and Jupiter are kind of opposites in a way. So, they both represent learning, how we learn about and understand our world. It's just that Mercury is in a much more nearsighted way of learning, learning through facts and immediate observations, whereas Jupiter is more about the far-sighted version. It's about the big questions and the philosophy and the religion and the science and the spirituality and all that. So together, they actually blend very well, even though they're opposing forces. They're both about branching out and experiencing something different than yourself, maybe learning something new. And so when you mix energies like that, they mix very easily, even though they are actually fundamentally different. So what does this actually mean for us? So what this means is Jupiter in Aries right now is kind of just expanding everything. We're in this like new beginning in terms of what Jupiter is doing. So on a societal level, we are exploring themes of the ego, the individuality, and of newness, of spontaneity, of initiation, instigation, that type of thing. And then now we're combining that with Mercury in Cancer, which is more emotional, more intuitive. So together, I think it's very interesting. So we could be learning. It looks like we are learning something new, whether that be individually or as a collective. We're learning something new, maybe gaining some insight, but it's in a very intuitive, spirited kind of way. So we're having a new perspective from our spirit, like from our heart, something that we are emotionally invested in. We're having a new experience with. We're being kind of triggered a little bit, and gaining some kind of profound insight with. So that's about as specific as I can get for that. Moon continues through Scorpio, so this is a perfect sign for this as well. This is also showing that we are more perceptive and more more figuring everything out because Moon in Scorpio is bringing these scorpionic themes of the combination of intuition and emotional intelligence with the analytical ability because Scorpio does analyze quite a bit. Um, so the moon is kind of a perfect combination, combining these energies as well. So there's a lot of water in the chart. Moon does make the exact trine to the sun today on Saturday, July 9th. So that is very harmonious. It generally indicates that everyone is in a good mood. People are feeling very stable. However, this gets a little bit more complicated because the moon is not only in fall, but it also passes over the south node at around the same time that it trines the sun. So typically, this would bring up some kind of more challenging issues. Um, because this is in Scorpio, this could particularly bring up challenging issues involving our health, our sexuality, or sexual health. It could also bring up issues about money, specifically it's not necessarily the cash like on hand. It's not the resources that you have in your immediate vicinity or that you have physically. It's more the non-physical resources. So like your bank account, your investments, your stocks, your portfolio or what have you. Any money that you owe anyone else or any money that anyone owes you, like debts, loans, that type of thing. Interest, all of that. All of that there could be challenging issues with or maybe sudden changes. So that's just something to look out for. But it's a mixed bag. I mean, there would typically be challenges and struggles with that, but then there's also this trine from the sun indicating that we're in positive spirits. We are experiencing strong, stable, easy energy at this time. So I am contradicting myself, but I'm just gonna leave it out there because sometimes we experience contradictory things. So it's gonna be a mixed bag. Of course, it kind of depends on how these energies fall in your chart to see specifically how it will affect you on a personal level. Okay, and then lastly, going to Sunday, July 10th. Moon does enter Sagittarius. Looks like um, late morning Eastern Standard Time. And this is nice too. You know, Moon is not really making a major aspect with the Sun anymore, so that's kind of not particularly good or bad. So that's fine. But Moon in Sagittarius, we are typically in high spirits with Moon in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is kind of like a holiday type of energy. It's very happy-go-lucky and charismatic. So Moon in Sagittarius, we're more energetic and more able to kind of get out of our comfort zone a little bit. Of course, this is conflicting because Sun in Cancer makes us want to stay in our comfort zones and just be at home or with people that we're already familiar with. So there's kind of a balance there. We're maybe kind of straddling that line between craving the familiar and craving the unknown. You know, wanting adventure, wanting to stay in. So we're kind of wanting both at the same time. So somehow, if we could combine those, that would be ideal for Sunday. Otherwise, the sun does sextile Uranus today. So we have one final sextile of this week's forecast. Sun at 18 degrees of Cancer, making that sextile to Uranus at 18 degrees Taurus. And you can also see with Uranus, it's almost at the north node. So there could be some kind of really auspicious, sudden event, maybe especially financially, that could happen soon with Uranus. But as for the sextile, though, Sun in Cancer, we are emotional, we're sensitive, we're intuitive, and getting this sextile from Uranus in Taurus, I could see that we may get some kind of new change or maybe a new shift in our perspective regarding our finances or our resources in general. What are we investing in terms of our time, money, energy, our relationships, all of our kind of investments, whether they be emotional, physical, financial, all of it. All of that, there could be some kind of positive changes or developments. This looks more easy stuff. It looks like growth, maybe more so nothing too challenging. Of course, change can be challenging in itself, but this looks generally positive, I would say. Um, let's see. And it also, a lot of it could just be a shift in our perspective of our financial situation or of our investments in general. So maybe it's not actually the investments that are changing, it's just our perception of it. So we may kind of gain some insight or some realization. And I always say with Uranus, this is not the type of insight that you gain knowingly or consciously or intentionally. It's not that you're, working away at researching something or figuring something out and then you get this insight. It kind of just comes to you from nowhere. And especially with Sun and Cancer, the way we are receiving and interpreting information with Sun and Mercury in Cancer as well is emotional. So with these Cancerian with the water energies, you kind of just pick up on stuff. That's how intuition works. You kind of just know things. And with Uranus, the Great Awakener, you may just kind of know something you didn't know before. This could be unsettling in its kind of darkest manifestation. It could be very unsettling because you're realizing that something you were okay with before is actually maybe not okay, that you can do better. So the challenge is being responsible, stepping up to the plate and saying, I can do better. And now I'm more awake, I'm more aware than I was before. I'm going to apply that and improve my situation. So ultimately, the change comes from you. It's really just the change in your consciousness that is coming from nowhere. It's inexplicable. And what you do with that is up to you. So I'm actually going to leave it there. For this week. For next week, stay tuned just because we do have a full moon in Capricorn, and that's actually going to be very, very interesting. Um, I really want to stress that. I'm going to talk about it a lot next week, but it it happens to fall on a very interesting degree that was triggered back in 2020, where a lot of things changed the world. There was a major aspect that happened back in 2020 at the same degree that this full moon will happen. And so I am a little bit wary about this one. I think there's going to be something happening in the world, some kind of change with the world um, regarding our financial situation, especially. So that's something to just look out for. Otherwise, in a little bit more positive terms, Venus is changing signs next week as well. So I hope all of you are getting through these times. I know they are very strange times indeed, but I think there is a lot of. I think we can all feel that there's something kind of just around the corner. Like I say, it's like the calm before the storm a lot because we have a lot of storms in astrology. I feel like there's always these different crises kind of hitting us, but right now is one of those times that things are calm for right now, but there is something kind of coming just around the corner. So stay tuned for that, and I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next week.